One aspect of the Barbie movie that I don't see people talking about. That does make sense given that, yes, Barbie was always an adult woman. I'm guessing the creator and later Mattel knew it wouldn't be believable to have a teenage girl be everything a woman could be. Haha yeah. Most teenagers, or 20-somethings, ain't lawyers, doctors, judges, or presidents. Lol. Those roles are like the roles in Barbieland in the real world. They usually go to women in their 30s and 40s due to the years of education, internships, experience, and such. Very true. We never heard about Barbie going to school for 15 years to get to any of those roles or all the expected boring grunt work. Childhood me did enjoy seeing all of the options though, and then also seeing women in the community that actually held those roles. For me that message very much said women can be anything, and was part of joy of my always expanding Barbie collection way back then. I can never picture someone else as Barbie. Margot is just perfect and Ryan really fit the role too well. If Paris Hilton could act, she would be perfect. But I do like Margot. TBF. Paris Hilton has been acting for a long time. Simple Life was a complete act. Yes, now I think of it, I always thought Barbie had to be at least in her late 20s to have all the careers she's had. I do say this as someone who wasn't super into Barbies when I was a kid in the late 80s and early 90s, so I've probably missed a lot of Barbie lore. I haven't seen it yet. But am I right that there's also a fat Barbie and a Barbie who uses a wheelchair? And neither of these are considered negatives. They are just Barbies like all the others. I know Barbie got very ethnically diverse after the OG, but I wasn't aware there was a plus size Barbie or Barbies with disabilities. So I have learned something new from the Barbie film discourse. Lol. The movie does have a plus size Barbie and what I loved is it is literally never mentioned. Her role is the same as all the other Barbies. She's not a token author, but of a joke. She's just a regular Barbie. There is a short sighting of a wheelchair using Barbie during a dance scene too. I remember seeing somewhere that people were saying Ryan was too old to play Ken. Lol. Given how Ryan Gosling is one of the male celebrities that Winnie incels always seem to cite all women being universally attracted to, his casting felt like perfect trolling, and he seemed to be absolutely in on the joke. My friends and I were discussing this after the movie over, of course, drinks. Was it an intentional troll? Knowing that those incels over at Toilet Paper USA and others were going to throw a fit about the major messaging of the movie, our slightly biased opinion was, yes, because Greta Gerwig. I recently learned that in the 60s Barbie was originally marketed as a teenage model. Then there was backlash BC she looked too old and sophisticated to be a teenager. It was her eyes, I think. So they created Midge, so she could be the younger looking Barbie. They made her eyes wider etc. This was all back in the 60s/70s and the 90s. When I was a girl I always thought of Barbie as a woman. A grown up. Skipper was the teenager. Yeah, I could probably see that. I just think the original Barbie kind of looked mean that. Looks like she was giving side eye. I agree, as an avid Barbie player and lover, I would have been confused if they had cast her as a teen. As a child, I knew she was an adult. I was more confused why she wasn't married lol. Again, this is all my thoughts as a child. Not married, but had a lot of wedding dresses. Yay what the heck lol. I forgot about that. I always thought Barbie had to be in her late 20s or 30s minimum. She just doesn't look like a teen to me. So I'm glad they casted people in that range. She owns a nice car, her own home, a massive wardrobe, and is a doctor, lawyer, teacher, or president. She is definitely in her 30s. All of those are completely possible in your 20s tbh. Except maybe president. Barbie was meant to be a child-free, successful and independent grown woman from inception. She never married or had kids. And I think that message was a refreshing compared to playing with a doll like it was a chore. Yes, I saw a guy on Twitter saying Barbie should have been played by a 19-year-old with double D's. But that wouldn't be Barbie the movie. That would be Porn the movie. Barbie has always been an accomplished, successful woman. Often with careers that take like a decade to even start in, let alone be successful in. It makes sense for her to be played by a woman over 30. I also loved how the movie portrayed aging as a woman as a beautiful and positive thing to strive for and choose, as opposed to scary or an afterthought. Yeah, me too. In general, I see finally an influx of 30 plus women in media, by the way, which makes me happy. For a while we were finally being more inclusive in ethnicity / gender / sexuality / etc. But it still always bothered me, like, where are the old ladies at? Old men have always been allowed to exist on screen. Nice to see now in general more 30 / 40 / 50 / 60 / 70 / 80 plus women doing stuff and having jobs in shows instead of either being cast as a granny or a witch. Silo / Star Trek-ish fictions, I finally suddenly see 50 plus female engineers and such. That in real life exists too, lol. Instead of that, the last 2 decades or something, the only female engineer had to be young, and the whole story was that she was the only female engineer and young and new. Finally now some just people being people. I also noticed some more shows what is in a general way just showing life without people being too young / too pretty. Grace and Frankie felt like a genuine one. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Loads I forgot names of. I was totally kinda getting done with looking at the same young faces. Not because there is something wrong with younger people, but diversity is just more interesting. A part of people having weird views that women are old barren hags after 29 also comes from solely seeing one type of woman on TV for so long. The forgotten woman began to really feel real. And coming back to Barbie, they kinda could not have gone for younger, I think. It is secretly made for our nostalgia crazy generation that is now in 30s / 40s. And that translates better if played by people that also are that age. Amazing actors exists in all forms, but if a 18-year could have played Barbie, yeah, probably if she is a good actress, but it always gives an extra zest if an actor also understands / experienced it. Ryan Gosling is 42. I think he's great in the role, and in one sense, yes, it's nice that everyone is over 30. But I'm still annoyed that he is about 10 years older than Margot. Can you imagine them casting a 42-year-old in the female lead? My understanding is that Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig wanted Ryan Gosling specifically for the role, and it's not so much that he was cast as that they picked him as their favorite option for Ken and then harangued him until he said yes. My headcanon is that when they were young, they saw him on TV as a teen actor, and they wanted him for the Ken role based on that. Margot Robbie keeps bringing up young Hercules in interviews. After all, sure, I mean, A-listers don't really audition for roles. I'm just saying, imagine the world where the actor playing Barbie is 42 and the actor playing Ken is 32. It's so unlikely. Why are so many leading men 40s and older, and so many leading ladies 20s to mid 30s? Yeah, I guess playing with Barbie, I assumed she was a full-on adult. Life figured out and shit. It's nice that had older actors instead of trying to push younger new ones out, but they probably knew their audience. She was cast at 29, so I don't know if I would consider older Peresi, but I see your point. Yeah, but when you're 8, adult seems like 42, and I would expect them to cast 19-year-olds or something. Pushing 40 by being in their 30s. Ryan Gosling is 42. I know that. It's still funny to call people in their actual 30s pushing 40. I also noticed this, and I was happy to see it. When is the phrase pushing 40 going to die a fiery death? You push 40 up a hill but it rolls back to the bottom when you think you've made it. I appreciated that as well. It also allows themselves to relate to the Barbies. I'm just hoping that's because it was part of Greta Gerwig's vision. She's 39 herself, and not some kind of cynical nod to the fact that Barbie was more popular with girls who grew up before Bratz, Monster High, etc. came along, 20 somethings. It's probably a little of both. But either way, you're right. That's something to celebrate. Oh, that's a fair point also. Late 40s me wants to cry at pushing 40. Oh no, it happens to all of us eventually. Even as a kid, I had no interest in babies or playing with baby dolls. I loved my Barbies. I got to use my imagination for something other than pretending to be a mother with a baby. Barbie could do anything. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm loving the great reviews. I loved Barbie, and I loved Bratz. When I was a kid, my favorite things to play with. But also, that's all my mom could afford. We couldn't afford the latest technology toys, so my mom got me Barbies and Bratz to suffice. OMG, yes, this is incredible, thank God. Am I the only one who was so disappointed by the last line? Spoiler, I feel like all of the great messaging they had throughout the entire movie was undone by the very last line. She finally becomes a real woman, which apparently equals herder woman equals vagina, again implying the most important and quintessential thing about being a woman is her genitals. I haven't seen anyone mention that part. Am I crazy here? A lot of women, especially in other countries, never see a gynecologist until they are going to have a baby. Their GP does all pap smears, prescribes birth control, etc. Exclamation mark. I saw an article online where Greta addressed this. Basically she said that growing through puberty, she had felt the changes becoming a woman were embarrassing and shameful, and she wanted to show Barbie just happily accepting them as part of being human. Earlier in the movie, Barbie says she doesn't have genitals, so this changes when she decides to become human. I'm paraphrasing here, but I don't think her message was that her genitals were the most important feature. Just that having a V and all that goes with it isn't something to be ashamed of, when 50% of the population is in the same boat. Barbie movie was a perfect midlife crisis at 30 movie. Plus points on reflecting what is wrong with the patriarchal lip service towards women equality in the West. It was quite a bit hard to relate to when you're coming from a country with relatively equal rights between men and women. Great observation. I never thought about that. If memory serves, that was one of the initial controversies about the Barbie doll. As the movie's opening scene showed, children were primarily playing with baby dolls, so the shift to a more adult doll was unheard of. Oh, I can imagine for 1959. It's definitely unheard of. Common now. My sister's Barbie dissed Ken and had sex with my G.I. Joe so many times. Seems like Joe should have been in the movie. Joe did have kung fu grip. It's intentional. It's to market to all generations of women. Margot Robbie is not too young or too old. She's at the middle, so that has cross-generational appeal. I don't know if I would say she's in the middle. 45 will be considered in the middle. Ryan Gosling is 42, so he's closer to being in the middle than she is. She was cast when she was 29, so 32 years old is still pretty young. I was more of a paper doll kid. They were cheaper and you could have a lot more variety by cutting up comic books and catalogs. I'm not a Barbie type of girl, but all the reviews of the movie make me want to go see it. I think this has been pretty common throughout TV shows and movies throughout the decades. That is, older actors playing younger roles. True, but they are not playing younger characters. What do you mean? The 90s version of Beverly Hills 90210 was famous for 30-year-olds playing teenagers. I notice and love this. I have the exact same birthday as Margot Robbie, so it was actually right at the front of my mind. Watching it, here's this beautiful, curious, self-actualized, 32 over 33 years old Barbie. I couldn't have loved the film more.